And we're back, and thank you so much for staying tuned here to Channel 82 for Backstage. I'm your host, Mr. Magic. My guest, Mr. Leroy Simmons, of the president of the Bermuda Entertainment Union. Now, just before we went to break, I mentioned, let's talk about what needs to be done for those promoters that are trying to bring in artists from overseas. Mm-hmm. What are the requirements, and what do they have to do? Is there any money that needs to be paid, received? What is the process for this, for those promoters?
Sure. Well, as far as we're concerned, travelers' dues continue to be a part of the process. What has happened recently is the Department of Immigration has pretty much taken themselves out of the loop, which is very unfortunate. Don't look at me confused.
I am, because I'm so used to them being a part or in the loop,
right,
say.
Which doesn't make any sense at all. But primarily what has happened in the past, before the application is processed, immigration will ensure that they have come to us to ensure that the due diligence is done. Yes. What we do is we ensure that people coming in are, first of all, not on the international unfair list, which is important. That's important for promoters, and it's important for the audience. It's important, period. So what we're doing is very similar to what immigration does. They check Interpol, right, yes, to ensure, again, some of those same things that people are not listed on Interpol. If they're not on Interpol, they don't want them here. If they're on the international unfair list, we don't necessarily want them here. And how do you get on the international unfair list? Well, one, by perhaps not fulfilling your obligations as you should have, as was outlined in a contract previously. You know, those types of things moving forward. So no promoter wants to have an artist or someone come here who's supposed to perhaps perform for, let's say, 45 minutes and gets up there and does it for 15 minutes and walks off stage and expects their money and walks away. Can you imagine what that does to the audience?
Understood.
If these people have a track record of those types of things, we just simply suggest. Now, we are not in a position to simply deny anybody from coming to the island. We just simply say we do not support this particular event, and it's always been like that.
Okay.
And then, of course, we ensure that locals are a part of the particular event.
What is the ratio of that?
Well, in the past agreement, what it was supposed to be is sort of a 1-for-1.
Okay.
So if you're bringing in, 5 artists, then you have to at least hire 5 locals. Well, we have understood that that's not necessarily a feasible thing to do all the time. So we've worked with our promoters and simply said, listen, at least hire at least some sort of local entertainment. And it could be, for 15 minutes. It could be a comic. It could be a poetry reader. The idea is simply ensure that locals are involved. This is the only way, one, that we get to develop, our talents, for people to see what is out there. And of course, in Bermuda, we don't have that many opportunities to perform. I mean, look at yourself. If I ask you, are you doing magic every weekend? And I know you're the one doing the interview.
My number is 555-6555. No, I agree. I know exactly what you're talking about. It used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be. I interviewed Mr. Slick some time ago, and we reminisced about how we were doing 4 shows a weekend.
Sure.
And having to get from one to another. And then it got down to, we were doing every weekend. And then it became like every other weekend. Then it became like once a month. Now it's like, call me,
Sure.
So I definitely understand what you're saying in that regard.
Right, so ensuring that at least those things are in place, that whenever overseas entertainers come, that at least local entertainer is
part of that
part
event.
of the process.
Yeah.
So when we have things like the Minister of Homeland Security, of immigration, basically stating things like groups such as the Bermuda Festival has done nothing wrong. It's a problem for us because they've brought in people, and this has been a problem over many years, where they've brought in many overseas people and had not hired local entertainers. Now, we've had several meetings with this particular entity, and of course the last couple of years we've been able to work out some sort of arrangement. This past year, they just simply put money in our account and expected us to accept what was said. That is not acceptable,
okay.
and it will never be acceptable for us. And so, although they've had the support of the minister, trust me, we are continuing to move forward with some other processes that will ensure that locals are hired for that event and others. So, although again, immigration now is processing without having the full approval from the Bermuda Entertainment Union first.
You see, I'm still making the face on that because I do recall you and I having dealings in the past, or for me promoting a show, and that's one thing they said to me. So I'm like, okay, I'll call Leroy, and you explained to me that same process. Got to go to you first, pay the fee there, then go to immigration, pay the other fee there, and you know, and then go through the process.
But what's interesting, again, when we talk about fees, their fees have increased over the years, several times. We haven't increased our fees. We've worked with several groups over the years, and of course, there's been statements as to, well, what do we use the fees for? Well, we have put aside a percentage of those fees that go toward sponsorship and scholarships. Okay. At the same time, the other fees will assist in our administration and, of course, building the union. We are a small union. We don't collect fees from our members every month. You understand? It's $80 for a year. So we're building the process. Moving forward. So, again, you talk about what's the process as far as bringing folk in. They are still required to pay the traveler's dues. In this jurisdiction, when you are bringing in local overseas entertainers, you must follow the union of that particular jurisdiction. It's the same thing in the U.S., England, Canada, and wherever else.
And what is the fee of these traveler's dues?
$100 for generally per person.
Okay.
For the first 10, and then it's half price after that. If you're a registered charity, and it must come in, the letter must come in with the on the letterhead of the charity
and the registration number and
all of that sort of thing. And of course, we get information from the charity office each month, stating which charities are in in good standings. So we double check, cross check that as well, and so the charities will get a 50% off. Okay, so that's $50 for the first 10, and then half after that.
Okay.
And what folk don't know is that we've done special things for the Bermuda Festival. We've given them a rate of $25 across the board over the years. So for them to sort of treat us in such a
my thing is, why would they get a break and nobody else?
One of the things that we had looked at was the fact that they, over that 3-month period, 2.5-month period, whatever it is, they were bringing in quite a few of entertainers, overseas entertainers. What has been proven now, particularly in this last year, is that they haven't appreciated the sacrifices and the
effort that's being made.
On our part to reach out and make it happen. So, we can look at each event as an individual event. So, in other words, if you've got a jazz event this weekend, that's one event. Whether you are promoting it
as a month-long thing, as part of one collective. That was one event. Okay.
So there are many things, many options that we have, and of course, with our affiliates overseas, the American Federation of Musicians and Variety Artists, Canadian Musicians of Variety Artists, there are some other things that we'll be able to put in place, which is, I think, unfortunate, because we should not have to go through those processes. Now, other things that are required, of course, sending in a letter outlining, of course, the date, the venue of the place, who's coming in, their stage name, and of course, the local artists that are participating. And we ask for a 48-hour process to do our due diligence, and we get it back. And this can all be done by email, just emailing us at info@BermudaEntertainmentUnion.com.
Okay, can you repeat that one more time?
BermudaEntertainmentUnion.com. And if you need any further information, we could do that. And then, of course, we try to make it easy as well, because I'm not always at the office. And so what can happen is, we will give you an account number to make the direct deposit. They send us a copy of the transaction, and we email them the invoice.
Okay, and on that note, we'll be back right after this, more with Mr. Leroy Simmons, President of Bermuda Entertainment Union. So stay tuned, it's Backstage. I'm your host. See you in a few minutes.